The Galactic Empire had not been challenged in 312 standard cycles, and even the word challenge felt like an indulgence rather than a truth. Conquest had become procedural. Resistance was catalogued, analyzed, and dissolved with the same detached efficiency used to regulate trade routes or recalibrate orbital defenses. Empires were not built on passion, they were built on inevitability. The Great Council Chamber reflected that belief perfectly. It was a structure grown rather than built, layers of bioarchitected stone and living crystal spiraling upward into a ceiling so distant it faded into darkness. Light came not from lamps but from energy veins pulsing slowly through the walls, responding to the collective biosignatures of the species present. The more powerful the civilization, the stronger the glow around its seeding ring. The center floated the imperial sigil, a massive geometric construct that rotated with precise slowness, symbolizing balance, order, and unbreakable hierarchy. Beneath it, representatives of nearly 4,000 sentient species observed, calculated, and waited. This was not a place of debate anymore. That era had ended centuries ago. The Council no longer decided if something would happen, only how efficiently. The matter of the day was Earth. Most members of the Council regarded the name with mild disinterest. Humanity was filed under emerging civilizations, Class C, technologically competent but socially volatile, capable of producing impressive bursts of innovation followed by periods of internal collapse. They were known for paradoxes, cooperative yet combative, empathetic yet destructive, idealistic yet brutally pragmatic when threatened. The Empire had allowed them a diplomatic seat less out of respect and more out of habit. Granting observation status smoothed absorption later. The humans were expected to fracture on their own within a few centuries regardless. Empires had patience measured in millennia. When the human representative entered the chamber, there was no ripple of reaction. She walked alone and a guard followed her. No defensive drones hovered nearby. No ceremonial attire marked her as important. She wore neutral fabrics designed for comfort rather than intimidation, colored in subdued tones that blended easily with the ambient lighting. Her pace was unhurried, neither deferential nor confrontational. She moved like someone entering a familiar room rather than the most powerful political chamber in the known galaxy. Several council members noted this with mild curiosity. Others flagged it as a cultural misunderstanding. Humans often failed to grasp the symbolic language of power. She stopped at the designated position for non-core species envoys and waited an OBOW.NO proclamation to NO attempt to draw attention. The Imperial High Speaker, a massive being of layered chitin and luminescent membranes, initiated the session. Its voice resonated across the chamber without amplification, carried on harmonic frequencies that translated automatically for all present. The Empire acknowledged the arrival of Earth's representative. Formalities were observed. Protocols were recited. Historical summaries were displayed across the shared cognitive lattice. Humanity's rise from planetary conflict to limited interstellar travel unfolded in clean, compressed data streams. Wars, recoveries, breakthroughs, collapses, unity movements, fragmentation, reunification. A predictable pattern. The Empire had seen it thousands of times. What was less predictable was the human woman's expression as the summary played. She did not look impressed or defensive. She did not attempt to interject or correct the record. Her face remained composed, eyes attentive, posture relaxed but aligned. She absorbed the narrative of her species as if listening to an old story she already knew by heart. When the Imperial speaker concluded, the tone shifted subtly. The Empire expressed concern over Earth's rapid militarization, concern over unauthorized expansion beyond permitted trade corridors, concern over repeated violations of containment advisories issued for the protection of humanity and neighboring systems. The language was neutral, dispassionate, almost kind. The Empire did not threaten. It did not accuse. It simply explained consequences as one might explain gravity. The woman diplomat listened without interruption. When it was her turn to speak, she did not begin immediately. She paused, just long enough for several council members to register discomfort. Silence was unusual here. Most envoys rushed to fill it, afraid of appearing uncertain. She was not. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and unremarkable in tone. There was no attempt at rhetorical flourish. Earth acknowledged the Empire's concerns. Earth valued peace. Earth had no intention of destabilizing the region. She used language so carefully measured it almost disappeared into itself. Some members of the Council relaxed. This was familiar. Emerging civilizations always sounded like this at first. Gratitude, assurances, willingness to cooperate. But then she asked a question. It was not confrontational. It was framed as a request for clarification. She asked how many independent species the Empire currently governed by force rather than treaty. The chamber stilled, not dramatically, but perceptibly. The question was not forbidden, but it was unnecessary. The answer was publicly available. The Empire did not hide its conquests. The imperial speaker answered without hesitation. Thousands. The woman nodded slowly, as if confirming a calculation. She asked another question. How many of those species had once been offered protective oversight similar to what Earth was now receiving? There was a fractional pause before the answer came. Most. Still no reaction from her. No visible judgment. She asked a third question. How many of those species had voluntarily remained within the Empire once technological parity was achieved? The answer was fewer. The Council exchanged subtle signals. Data tags passed quietly between intelligence representatives. This line of questioning was unusual. Not dangerous, but inconvenient. Humans were known for asking inefficient questions. Emotional ones. Philosophical ones. The Empire responded anyway. The woman thanked them and said nothing more. No demands, no objections, no resistance. To the observers, it looked like compliance. After the session ended, internal analyses circulated rapidly. The consensus was reassuring. Earth's envoy was intelligent but ultimately constrained by her civilization's limitations. Curiosity did not equate to defiance. The questions were likely a domestic performance, gestures meant to placate Earth's internal factions resistant to integration. The recommendation was to proceed. Pressure would be applied gradually. Access limitations. Resource tariffs. Strategic restrictions framed as safety measures. Earth would adapt, as all others had. The woman diplomat returned to Earth without incident. Months passed. During that time, the Empire observed increasing human activity. Not militarily aggressive, but reorganized. Supply chains shifted. Civilian infrastructure expanded in patterns that did not align with economic projections. Communications traffic intensified, but encryption protocols remained within acceptable civilian ranges. Empire analysts flagged it as internal consolidation. Humans were prone to overreaction. Fear often drove inefficient resource allocation. The Empire adjusted containment measures slightly. Earth responded not with protest, but with silence. No appeals. No escalation. Another council session was convened. The woman returned, same attire, same posture, same calm. The Galactic Empire did not notice the first mistake it made. That was the nature of empires like it, ancient, victorious, and accustomed to patterns repeating. It noticed rebellion. It noticed resistance. It noticed defiance that looked like defiance. What it did not notice was absence. Humanity did not fight the way the Empire understood fighting. As imperial fleets advanced deeper into Sol system space, they encountered resistance that was almost polite. Human ships appeared, exchanged measured volleys, then withdrew along vectors that suggested panic but followed trajectories too clean to be accidental. Defensive installations activated late, fired with conservative energy profiles, and self-destructed only after their data cores had been scrubbed beyond recovery. The Empire won every engagement, and yet, with each victory, something vital slipped through its grasp. Supply ships began reporting delays. Not ambushes, nothing so dramatic. Just delays. Navigation beacons failed calibration checks. Refueling depots existed exactly where Imperial charts said they would, but their reserves had already been drained, their machinery intact but inert, as if abandoned mid-thought to first. These were dismissed as the normal inefficiencies of war. Then the inefficiencies began to align. An entire task group stalled when its quantum-com relays began desynchronizing in ways engineers insisted were impossible. Diagnostics returned clean. Components passed every check. And yet, signals arrived milliseconds late, then seconds, then not at all. The Empire prided itself on redundancy. For every system, there were backups. For every backup, alternatives designed by different species, different philosophies. Failure cascades were supposed to be impossible. Humanity found the seams anyway, not through brute force, but through assumption. They exploited the Empire's confidence in its own doctrine. Its belief that logistics were solved problems, that communication was merely a technical concern, that morale collapsed only under visible defeat. Human strikes were small, precise, and maddeningly deniable. A courier vessel vanished between two safe points, leaving no debris. A navigation AI updated itself using corrupted stellar drift data that looked correct unless cross-referenced with human astronomical models the Empire had ignored as primitive. Across the Imperial command structure, irritation replaced amusement escalate. The High Commander ordered, planetary bombardments intensified. Human population centers burned. Oceans boiled in controlled arcs meant to terrify rather than exterminate. Still, there were no pleas.no leaders begging for mercy. No final broadcasts meant to inspire. The woman did not speak again. Imperial analysts intercepted fragments of her internal communications, but they were unsatisfying. No rhetoric. No defiance. Just instructions, delay them, redirect here. If lost, acceptable. If intact, deny. She treats assets like numbers, one analyst said. Cold. No. Another corrected. Practical. As weeks turned into months, something unprecedented occurred. Imperial fleets began losing battles they did not realize they were fighting. Entire formations arrived at rally points to find themselves alone, their counterparts delayed by errors no single commander could explain. When they attempted to regroup, human harassment attacks struck their flanks, not to destroy them, but to force maneuvers that consumed fuel and time. Time became the enemy. The Empire's war doctrine assumed rapid dominance. Long wars bred dissent among conquered species, whose loyalty was maintained through the illusion of inevitability. That illusion was cracking. Reports filtered in from distant sectors. Minor uprisings. Sabotage. Refusals to meet production quotas. They sense weakness. A counselor warned, "We are not weak," the High Commander snapped, but even he could not ignore the numbers. The cost of the human campaign was rising disproportionately. Not in ships lost, those remained acceptable, but in effort, in attention, in strain. Humanity was forcing the Empire to think, and thinking, for an empire that had relied on certainty for millennia, was exhausting. The first true disaster came without spectacle. An Imperial armada entered a human-controlled system believed abandoned. Sensors reported nothing unusual. No mines. No fleets. Then the stars changed, not physically, but in the data. Human probes, scattered years earlier and forgotten, activated simultaneously, flooding Imperial sensors with conflicting gravitational readings. Navigation systems attempted automatic correction. Each correction made the error worse. Ships drifted out of formation. Then human weapons struck. They were not powerful. They were clever. Gravitic shear charges detonated in patterns that amplified existing navigational errors, tearing ships apart not through force, but through misalignment. Vessels collided at relativistic speeds, shredded by physics rather than fire.